After the thing, just thing and
Okay, so we're just going live now.
okay. Like your cloth, oh my cloth.
Everybody just the advance.
Yes, they don't talk, but the one we just they talk that shake that provide.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you all can hear me loud and clear. Let me use this opportunity to welcome you to another edition of Ask the Candidates. And this time we have as our distinguished guest, the People's Republican Party governorship candidate, Pastor Usani Usani. So for those who are joining us for the first time, we started this series of events, with candidates of the different parties. We started with the PDP. We had Senator Sandy Ono. 2 weeks ago, we had Comrade Effium Okokon of the Social Democratic Party. And today, we're delighted to have the candidate of the PRP. And hopefully, in 2 weeks' time, we will have the candidate of the APC. So I'm going to, just as a brief introduction, the Ask the Candidate is an initiative of the Cross River movement. And what we're doing through this initiative is giving Cross Riverians and lovers of Cross River State an opportunity to put pertinent questions to the candidates for the position of, governor of Cross River State come 2023. So I'm going to go through a few housekeeping rules, before I then sort of set the scene for the interactive session. So you might already have noticed that we've disabled the chat facility on this session. We want to keep things focused, so I'll be sharing with you instructions on how you can ask your questions while the interactive session is on. You may put your questions to the candidate through a Zoom page, which will be shared in the chat shortly. So keep an eye out for that, and do put any questions that you may have there, and we will be sure to ask the candidate. All right, so for those who are listening via radio, this event is being streamed on Hit FM 95.9 in Calabar. If you have a question that you would like to ask, please text the question or WhatsApp the question to 0909 594 2401. I repeat that, 0909 594 2401. Please don't call the number. You can send a WhatsApp message to it or a chat. As we go on with the interactive session, the last 10 to 15 minutes, we will throw it open. So if there's anyone who is on the Zoom call who would like to ask a question, you can use the reactions icon to indicate, and we would give you the opportunity to ask the question. And we would prioritize those who have their videos turned on. So we'd like you to, do switch your video on. All right, so when you do have a chance to ask a question, we'd like you to keep your questions brief, keep your questions to under 30 seconds. And would also encourage the candidate to keep his answers as direct and straight to the point as possible. We would also be running a few short polls during the course of this interactive session. So you might see messages popping up every now and again asking you questions. Please answer those questions, as they will help us gauge sort of public opinion. Okay, so thanks very much. So today we have the candidate, as I said, of the PRP. Before I read out his citation, I'm going to invite Pastor Sonny Enebi, who is the co-convener of the Africa Leadership Group. The Africa Leadership Group are partners of this initiative. So I would invite him to make a couple of brief remarks. Pastor Sonny, over to you.
Thank you very much, Iso. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this. I welcome our guests, Mr. Usani Usani, right? Did I get the name right? Yes, Honorable Minister. I think we have met before, maybe under some other circumstances. I want to appreciate Iso for taking up this challenge. I am the co-convener of the African Leadership Group. My name is Sonny Enebi. The African Leadership Group is an NGO that has set about getting involved with the leadership challenge in Africa. We have discovered that part of the problem in Africa is the leadership recruitment process that has not really been going well all along. So we came in to try to see how we can get involved in the recruitment of leaders and to ensure that the right caliber of leaders are recruited into the various offices. As an umbrella group, we try to do that at the national level. And we have partnered with a lot of groups like Iso, for instance, who is more interested in Cross River State, which is the state where he comes from. And we're encouraging a lot of other organizations to take, if you like, a franchise from us, organize for your states, for all the candidates, whether it is governorship, senatorial, or House of Rep, or indeed any other office. What is our mission? What do we want to achieve? We want to put the feet of these candidates to the fire. We want to ensure that people who are presenting themselves for leadership have thought carefully about what they want to do, not just coming out because they feel that I have invested in the party or I have been long on this political journey, so the next right thing for me to do is to contest an election. We want to interrogate their thinking and what they want to offer the people. And then we are going to document these programs are being recorded. And we are hoping that from time to time, we'll be able to replay many of these things and use it to challenge the candidates that we are speaking to, so that people don't just come and make promises and nobody challenges them down the road. So I really appreciate what Iso is doing in Cross River State. And I do hope that we'll have the opportunity to speak with all the candidates across board. And then we'll get to hear what they want to offer, and then the people can really interrogate them. We hope that if they win or when they win, it will not end there. The process of engagement will continue, because that's the only way that democracy can be protected in our country. So we look forward to a robust conversation this afternoon. I'm sure Mr. Usani has thought carefully about why he wants to be governor of Cross River State and what he wants to offer the people. And I trust Iso to take him to the task and every other person on the platform. So I look forward to having a robust conversation. Thank you very much, Iso, and welcome again, Mr. Usani. God bless you. Over to you.
Pastor Sonny Enebi, thank you very much for those brief introductory remarks. Permit me once again, sorry, I think I didn't do justice to this earlier. So just to emphasize that, this is being brought to you in partnership with the African Leadership Group, the Calabar Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, the Cross River Economic Summit Organization, and then we're streaming live on Hit FM 95.9. So also I would like to emphasize, we've got sponsors for the radio component of this. So it's been brought to you on Hit FM 95.9, courtesy of Quick School Manager, which is an easy-to-use school management system, and the Alphaberg Agro Allied Limited, which is an integrated farming, food processing, and alternative energy organization. Okay, so thanks very much. I will jump straight into the citation. So Pastor Usani was born on the 27th of January, 1961 in Nko Yako local government area, Cross River State. He's a pastor, and over the years, he has recorded, great achievements and experience in governance and public administration. He served as personal assistant to Governor Clement Ebri on speech writing and policy analysis in 1993. At the same time, he was secretary of the Structural Adjustment Program Relief Committee. During that same period, he was appointed as sole administrator of the Nigerian Legion Cross River State Command. And then between 1994 and 95, he served as director of Oban Nigeria Rubber and Palm Estates Limited. In July 1995, Usani was appointed commissioner in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Social Development in Cross River State. That was under the military administration of Gregory Boneni. In November 1995, his portfolio was enlarged to include information duties. In February 1997, in the cabinet dissolution and reconstitution, he was reappointed to the Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources, and Rural Development, where he served until 1999. He was appointed as member of the governing board of the Nigerian Copyright Commission in 2001. Usani lectured at the London Academy for Management Sciences in Ilford, Essex, in a variety of courses to business undergraduates, MBA students, and professional candidates as well. In November 2015, Usani was appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari as into the Nigerian Federal Executive Council as Minister of Niger Delta Affairs. And between July 2014 and November 2015, he was elected the state chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Cross River State. And he has contested the seat of governorship of Cross River State 3 times before now. He's presently the governorship candidate of the People's Redemption Party ahead of the 2023 general elections. Pastor Usani, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're very much welcome.
I will start with a question that Pastor Sonny and Nebi sort of posed, which was, why do you want to be the next governor of Cross River State?
Yes, I am passionate about wanting to be governor of Cross River State on account of my preparedness, my psychological stability, the informative appeal I have concerning the modern management of resources and persons. I also know I have the skills to be able to manage resources and also apply the relevant custom-fit strategies for implementation of whatever policy I put in place. Above all things, there is a gap in the political management of our systems in governance. And that gap is a strategic application of our knowledge in achieving results. We make policies, we make promises on account of just partisan prevail without bearing in mind the methods peculiar and adaptable to our environment and the nature of who we are to make sustainable success in the field that we make policies about. And these are the skills that I have, which I want to apply. It's not because I want to be relevant or I want to be seen as important. On those scales, I have already gained recognition. But there is something peculiar, which I believe perseverance will derive benefit from.
All right, thanks very much. If I may ask you, right? So Cross River State has a myriad of problems, of issues. what, in your opinion, are the top 3 issues that would be addressed by a government run by Pastor Usani Usani?
Yeah, if I want to interrogate your question, I'll first find out, why does the numeric of 3 come to mind? Why not 5? Why not 7? Why not 6? Why not 1?
We could also ask, why not 100? But I guess
Exactly.
the idea is to prioritize and to focus on.
The telling import of your question suggests that you have already got some 3 critical areas you think we should focus on, but nonetheless.
No, not necessarily. So if you want to speak about 5, you can. I'm just, if you want to speak about 5, you want to speak about more, it's okay.
Maybe I'm right to call you Chief Iso.
I haven't been given a chieftaincy title yet, sir.
Okay. In any case, I think every question deserves an answer. And my answer may be wise or foolish, but I think I need room to give you whatever response I have. First and foremost, I consider certain sectors that form the foundation or the trigger for sector resource connections as fundamental in the beginning, while others will take bearing from there. And those sectors are education, health, and infrastructure. The 3 foremost. And I think that's my answer to your question.
Okay, so education, health, and infrastructure. So maybe let's dive in a little bit. Let's maybe talk about education. What do you see as the big challenges with education in Cross River State, and how might the government under your administration address those problems?
Okay, from the praxis of underscoring what education is intended to achieve, being that when we get education, it is intended to give us skills and knowledge for society productivity. Then, if that is right, we need to know that when the system of education is faulty, then the intended goals will not be met. In education, the inability for us to value why education is important, which is actually gaining knowledge for necessary skills to be able to make choices in the development gamut. But we tend to value more of certification, which is just pieces of paper held in our hands, than what we gain from. I think equipping and tooling the education processes and system is most fundamental, which means if we must derive the necessary benefit from education, we need to get people to be committed to education through gaining knowledge. And what are the avenues for such knowledge gain? People have to have the relevant tools for studies, for learning, and of course, for teaching. From the human perspective,
Hello, Pastor Usani. And everybody, can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. So it looks like he's dropped off. So let's give him, okay, he's back. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, sir. Sorry. It looks like you had a problem with your internet connectivity, but it's nice to have you back. Please carry on.
All right. So in brief terms, because you've cautioned about managing time and therefore getting direct answers to questions, so on this account, I'll tell you the other things I think we will do in education sector. One of them is to have the infrastructure suitably in consonance with the modern methods and in tandem with global practices. Number 2, I believe that the foundation of education is very important for the appeal of secondary and tertiary institutional development, in which case primary education and secondary education are as important as the tertiary system that should enable us to gain the results that we expect to get, which is why I think teaching methods are very important. Since the teacher training colleges were abolished, teaching methods became moribund, and so to say. And on this account, we no longer appreciate, or we no longer have concise methods of appreciating whether what we are teaching is being learned or whether what people are learning is actually being internalized in those we intend to educate. And then the other thing about education is the fact of not giving it the right priority. For me, it is of foremost essence to have education receiving the right priority from government policy and also from the people whose words are intended to be taught. And then materials, tools and materials, system overhaul, approach and strategy for learning. Today, you find that much of the decadence in the methods of communication, which is a foundation for good learning, is really corrupt because we tend to use the social media language, which is not actually the standard for educational achievements or attainment. All these things require that things like public libraries should be encouraged. Hard text reading should be encouraged. So our policies will cover all these aspects to be able to have the tangible and intangible benefits of educational system.
Okay, you mentioned health and infrastructure. So maybe just diving into those two, starting with health, and then after that, we'll go into infrastructure. What are the tangible things that your government would do that would impact on healthcare in Cross River State? And to start with, because, you know, of course, people need to understand what the challenges are, and then also what the solutions that would be put in place to address those challenges. So, you know, in your understanding, what are the challenges in the healthcare sector in Cross River State, and what would you do to address those challenges?
In fact, care in the healthcare sector, if you want, without exaggeration, to rate it in public health institutions, is at best, I don't think more than 20 to 25%. And to handle that, I think, first and foremost, is to get the health sector staff under a system that will look after their welfare, devoid of the general attendance or attention given by the administration of the Ministry of Health. And these are initiated by suggesting in the budget of 1998 or 97 that we needed the Hospital Services Management Board, so that people, the public that benefits from the healthcare sector being attended to by public health institutions, particularly the hospitals, should have the best practices, because the welfare of the people who are administering healthcare should be taken as utmost priority. And that is why that was set up. It will be energized, reviewed, in order to get the mobilization that is necessary to fit into the modern healthcare demands. Number two, lack of resources to attain the necessary health attention calls for the need for healthcare insurance. But the policy of our welfare insurance will be made adaptable, given that the resources of disposable incomes of households are quite minimal in our circumstance. And so it will be made adaptable by the way we formulate it by healthcare experts, which we are already contemplating and looking at, so that we don't need another elongated time when we are in government to say we are studying to formulate. We are already doing that, so our formulation will be on hand immediately we take over as a government. The third thing is the facilities for healthcare, whether private or public, they are in a sorry state. I cannot promise that we will have all the money to provide all that is needed at one moment, but I can promise that we have the necessary links to have the right linkages to be able to support from the private sector, and also in partnership for certain mutual accruals. Then, the professional practice. Modern healthcare training techniques are very necessary for our public personnel, because some of the things, including even therapies that are applied to certain ailments, some of them terminal, are those that have become obsolete in the advanced world. Yet we take them as the prime innovations of the modern time. So in brief, these areas, when attended, will be very, very beneficial to the populace. And then consider the practice of healthcare in the private sector. I think there should be a social policy to enable that practice to be standard enough for people, because today, on account of cheap labor and commodification of the healthcare practice, I discovered that private practitioners are hardly able to offer the best because they are more interested in profiteering. So our healthcare policy will reflect on all this without losing steam, without losing focus, without losing professionalism. So it will be a function of wanting to achieve professionalism and practice for delivery. That is our focus.
All right. Okay, thanks very much. You also mentioned infrastructure. So would appreciate if you went into a bit of detail on infrastructure. And so yes, maybe I should just leave it at that. So yeah, just tell us about what the critical infrastructure you feel is required for Cross River State at this time, and how your government will go about giving us that infrastructure in the state.
Thank you very much. When you talk of infrastructure, you have two arms of infrastructure: physical and intangible social infrastructure. The intangible social infrastructure talks about how our connectivity in terms of orientation of social interaction enhances our use of the physical infrastructure. When you talk of the physical infrastructure, of course, the most important becomes what enables accessibility in interaction, physical and otherwise, in which case communication is essential, in which case individual touch is essential. But how physical infrastructure impacts on other sectors is that when connectivity in terms of transportation is enhanced, especially in the rural areas, it is an essential condition for food security, because that will also improve agriculture practice. It will improve movements, in which case travel time and travel distance is shortened. And that will automatically bring about more product or more produce to the markets. And this is how food security is enhanced, because it makes possible improved household incomes. And when those household incomes are improved, it leaves with you a greater proportion of disposable income to spread out in other sectors, forming the capital cycle of investments, whether it's in education or small-scale businesses. So to that extent, physical infrastructure is very, very important. Then, in the intangible aspect, your understanding of the social policy, welfare policy enables you to know at which point you get involved to be able to apply your skills for profitable earnings and for engagement, either in business or public life participation. So these are my ideas about infrastructure development. Trying to manage time, it is a bit difficult to say, I go to the level of strategy, bit by bit, down to the minute scales for you to understand what I mean. Some of the times when people don't understand the conception of a man in a certain concept, people tend to say it is academic. Yes, it will sound academic because you do not understand the rudiments of what the person has in mind. Every partisan politician knows how to make promises in every sector. But the rare thing that fills the gap is what we have, which is the methodology and the specific strategy for their implementation and result-oriented delivery.
Okay, Pastor Usani, thank you very much. I will. Okay, let's we've talked a little bit about policy. Now, I think let's talk about. We'll come back to policy, and of course, questions are going to be coming in, which I would put across to you. But let's now talk about what type of style, what type of governor would you be in Cross River State? So we've had different governors over the years with different styles of leadership. Some of them have been more hands-on and seeking to micromanage things. Some have been maybe more focused on due process. Some have some prefer to have convoys of 30 cars, some moving convoys of 2 or 3 cars. So it would be nice to know what type of governor, not in policy, but in style and in tone, you might be if you became our next governor.
Yes, I would want to be the governor of my nature. And the answer will be around my life. I don't have a reason to adjust my living because I am called governor. I have had privileges of exalted opportunities without changing my style. Always being with my people, the governor that has accessibility, that has comfort with relating with his people, the governor that interacts at all levels, and the governor that has a steady mind with a steadfast belief in certain principles of honor, which are accountability, transparency, which also involve having to know that every Cross Riverian anywhere in the world is a Cross Riverian in Cross River. So receiving the necessary attention as if he was resident in Cross River, without ignoring any aspect of the welfare of any Cross Riverian. When things affect the Cross Riverian in the West, in Europe, or elsewhere, we should give the proper attention that we will need to give as if he lived in Calabar or Obudu. So the type of governor that gives attention to every detail that comes to our knowledge, so that the people will understand that they are under a care of trust, of beneficence, not benevolence. We don't expect people to say thank you because we are doing anything. We expect people to expect from us because it's our responsibility to do so. That's what I mean by a governor of beneficence, not benevolence.
Okay, Pastor Usani, thank you very much. So if you're joining us on Hit FM 95.9, I believe, thank you for tuning in. You can ask your question by submitting it either by SMS or WhatsApp to 0909 594 2401. I'll repeat that, 0909 594 2401. So please text or WhatsApp your question to that number, and we'll be sure to put it across to the candidate. If you're live on the Zoom call, please, the link has been shared to a YouTube page. Please visit that page there and ask your question on that page, and we'll put it across to the candidate. And please, when you visit the page, click on the like button and click on the subscribe button as well, and subscribe to our channel. That would help us grow our following. So thanks very much for that. If you're, again, just to remind everyone, we have here Pastor Usani Usani, who is the candidate of the People's Redemption Party, vying for the governorship of Cross River State, and he's here today on the Ask the Candidate interactive session. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Pastor Usani, there's a question that's come in this afternoon, and it is about creating jobs for young people. So we know that that shortage of jobs is a problem across the whole of Nigeria. And I think that it is an even greater problem in Cross River State because of, maybe the overdependence of our economy in the state on the government. How do you intend to address this issue of unemployment for young people in particular?
Oh, that's good. First, I want to assure you that if you want to know the truth, I'll tell you, it's impossible for all unemployed youths to gain jobs under the government because the government spaces for job acquisition are quite inelastic. Number two, the other issue affecting the glut in the market is the fact that the proportion of spaces available for employment and the numbers of turnover of personnel, already personnel for absorption or potential absorption of personnel in the open or public labor market are quite disproportionate and irrational. And on this account, to create jobs will mean what are people interested in doing and what is available to enable them to do those things. And that is why we shall, first of all, understand various vocational manpower availabilities and the needs available. This will now enable government to know where to place priorities, in which sectors to develop, so people can find spaces to express themselves. For instance, I love the culture of the Southeast indigenes. In as much as they go to school, they also have a tendency to want to be private in some sense, having a fallback position for extra income, which enables them to learn other skills. I will want us to open our spaces to such, because you can be a historian and own a mechanic workshop. You can be an agriculturist and still run a telephone station. It is now being able to open the spaces for these practices by providing the relevant background basic needs for people to apply themselves. So creating jobs is necessarily asking rather, creating sustainable environment for vocational practices, which will also have relevance to other sectors in terms of forward and backward linkages of what skills people have acquired. If you have gone to learn agricultural practice and there's no land to practice, it's of no essence. So that is why I talked about having to provide spaces for the practice of skills that people have acquired. So if you have gone on a training and you have a kickstart of maybe 500,000 and you do not have the land to practice maize farming or any of such things, we have agricultural lands acquired by government in the past, known to be under the management of Cross River Basin Authority, for instance, though a federal establishment. So having been a commissioner for agriculture, and it is possible to now say, in partnership with that department of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, you can practice tenant farming, which will also become relevant in getting rent accruals, both for the farmers, or profit for the farmers, and rent accruals for government as well. So it's a function of having the policies that are feasible and also visible, not just politics in the air or in abstract that cannot be practiced. So to create jobs means looking at every sector. Again, mining can boost economy in Cross River State. The Mining Act of 2011 and further reviewed or amended makes provision for the licensing of artisanal farmers and artisanal miners. So the government can apply itself by getting artisanal miners whose cadastral requirements are smaller in units than the bigger miners. And then you cluster them in groups to mine what is available and boost the mining sector, which again will provide profit for the miners and accruals to the government. And if you look at them independently and discretely from sector to sector, you will find space that the government can, by practice, function, and policy, to be able to make spaces available and open. And as these linkages enlarge or expand, so shall people be fitting in. And these are the attractions for investors to come in to the sector once confidence is established in those sectors. So within 2 years to 3 years, this can be made to begin to boom, and you see that sector improve. And then when you talk about tourism again, we underplay tourism in the state by just presuming that tourism begins and ends with Carnival, which is seasonal, only in December, for maybe 30 days or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But there are ways to boost tourism, which necessarily draws clientele from all the other economic sectors, because every man is recreation. Every man needs a form of relaxation that can come in very many ways. Again, because of time, we cannot begin to talk about one by one.
No, you can speak, you can, because you've gone into tourism, which I think is important to Cross River State's economy. If you want to speak specifically about one or two things, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. Now, to go further on tourism, I'll tell you something. tourism, by the conception of its current operation in Cross River State, can never grow. When you want to talk of tourism, it means, apart from the fact that people want to go and recreate, it takes a conscious effort of advertisement and getting people to know that they are safe and secure to attract their relaxation or holidays. You also have to consider other things bringing people into Cross River to be able to access the tourism environment and advertise it, because tourism advertisement is not just normally only officials. It comes also from recommendations of friends and families. And so if you have to have effective tourism sector, you also think about the setbacks of tourism, whereby sometimes tourism accidents can occur. The social interactions in tourism can result in health challenges, for which the health sector must be developed to be sure that you can manage those facilities. People who are professionals in tourism will always want to know what obtains in their destinations before they venture, to know whether in terms of exigencies, they can access those facilities. So these are the aspects that can boost tourism, which we underplay because probably we are not conscious of them. And because, again, we are not professional enough in practicing tourism. So tourism does not begin with or end with Carnival of December each year. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Although your answer doesn't really tell me what you will do as governor, sir. With all due respect, I appreciate. But
the respect doesn't need to be due. Because the respect can only come when I satisfy your curiosity. Now, do you know we have the torrent of Agbokum waterfalls is a place that can really be developed to attract. Like when you go to Riom in Plateau State, you will see that the boost of tourism in Plateau State is powered by these natural resources, natural environment. And a place like Agbokum waterfalls, Square Falls, they fall into that category. So if you develop them, and in developing such natural resources, it's not really expensive. You don't need to be really exotic, because the attraction is really the natural environment, which enables people to have a difference in the appreciation of natural environments.
So the question, sir, is how would you develop those facilities? How would you develop those?
I'm now pointing out the facilities, how to develop them, of course, to apply resources and then get professionals to manage them. That is the how.
Okay. All right. Okay, sir. So I think we will. I can see someone has raised a hand here. We don't seem to be having the oh, okay. Sorry. I think I must have been slightly looking at a different place. I can see lots of questions have actually come in. Okay, so someone is asking, how do you intend to address the issue of industrialization in Cross River State, knowing fully well that Cross River State has been a civil service state for a while? So that's a question that's come in during the interactive session. We have a few more questions, so I'll put them across to you going forward. So, industrialization.
Okay. Our sense of industrialization should not just be seeing monumental or monuments of gigantic infrastructure to lead what we call industrialization. Every sector has its own demands for the expected outcomes. To build today, the challenge in industrialization is the competitive environment of the global operation of everything that has to do with security, education, in contributing to human development. And so to talk about industrialization, you think first, you find that some items can enter Nigeria from Dubai cheaper than items produced in Lagos or in Abuja. And so to talk about industrialization, you must necessarily have a culminating apex or node between competition and comparative environment. So to talk about industrialization without knowing the resources that will feed the industry, the expected capacity of a particular industry, and finding the market for the product of the industry is not something that you can say, while I sit here, I'll set up this industry, I'll set up that one and that, because they require tangible business analysis to make it self-sustaining and profitable. So it will be of our benefit to have the room to set up industries. But let me give you one instance or one example. If you want to use our input resources in the cocoa sector, are we getting into processing the cocoa raw material or getting into finished products of cocoa? At what cost and at what feeder capacity for what expected outcomes, so that you don't invest in the working capital outweighing the expected income that comes in, especially given the fact that the cocoa estates we have in Cross River, for instance, have been for over 40 or 50 years. Are they still of the productive capacity to feed any industry are setting in that sector? If not, how do we manage what we have to feed in? And then number two, if you know that companies like WEMCO, located in Ondo State, and also having the competitive feeder resource base in where they are set up, competing with buying cocoa in Cross River State, are they offering the farmers better incentives that they prefer to sell to them than us? So it is not something that obviously we'll be excited to have industries because they will absorb the labor. But truth be told, beyond partisan campaign just to win, said everything we say today will be held in check as evaluation in our performance when we win election. It's important to know that the answer must be critically examined vis-a-vis the possibilities and the expected outcomes. Above all things, for self-sustainability, in which case it must break even and make profit available. But one thing I can guarantee you, every industrial investor willing to cooperate with us will have within the framework of tax policy a good tax policy that will encourage them and also assist in probably the marketing segment, which will also power the production of such an industry.
Okay, since we're talking about industrialization, I'd like to get your view on the current administration's industrialization policy. Do you think that this current administration has been successful? Because the governor has made a lot of, seems to have put a lot of resources in industrialization. Has he been successful?
I'm not a speculative fellow. And because I'm not speculative, I cannot make statements or pronouncements on what information I do not have. First, you ask about whether he's successful by his industrialization policy. I have not studied it. Every policy has its own targets. Number two, I have not studied each of the industries in terms of capacity utilization, in terms of investment requirements, in terms of expected outcomes, in terms of job creation capacity. So it's difficult for me to say the governor is successful or this government is successful or they have made progress or they have failed or they have succeeded. That assessment, okay.
I understand you, sir, and I think 4 million of the Cross Riverians will say the same thing, but people can judge the success of something by how much it impacts on the lives of people who live locally. So I'm not saying you necessarily need to study, but I'm sure if we go out on the streets and ask one or two people, has this been a success? They would be able to based on how it may have influenced them or people around them.
Now, in that case, let me give you my opinion based on what I hear people say.
Okay.
That the toothpick industry in Ekori, my local government area, is not working. I told you before, by my personal opinion, I'm not a speculative person. Then, again, I have seen and appreciated the very wonderful infrastructure at the Ecom intended chocolate bars factory. I love what I see there, but I have not seen workers coming out of there. I have not also seen the chocolate bars from the place. So, and that is what people say. They are still waiting for it to take place. But the government has promised, hello, just take it easy.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yes, but the governor has promised that before he hands over, everything will be working. So based on that assertion, it may be premature to assess the success or failure of such investments.
Okay.
I hope that
All
is
right.
satisfactory enough.
Yeah, no, that's fine, sir. If that's your answer, that's satisfactory. So we have another question here asking, what is your position on the Asus strike? Of course, we know that this is a national issue, but it also affects students in Cross River State. What is your position on it? And, what do you think should be done to resolve that issue?
There is no human being, including the government officials, no human being that has conscience that would like what is going on about Asus strike. And now, in my own view, there are two reasons for which I think there needs to be a balance. The first view is that Boko Haram philosophy is that people should jettison Western education. So the Asus strike is actually fulfilling the Boko Haram policy or philosophy, which makes it even more painful. The other perspective is that if ASU is insisting that their demands must be met, and the government is making any effort, from an objective perspective, I think in my view it will be everything this government has owed from when they came in 2015, the government should clear. And if there are surpluses that are derived by way of liability absorption, then ASU should be reasonable enough to negotiate on that, because you don't put the burden of one regime on another regime that should not be liable, in which case there should be a balance struck to assuage the situation. So the burden of past liabilities should be negotiated and spread, so all other incoming administrations should be able to share in that burden, because governance and government is a continuum. That's my view.
Okay. All right, sir. We still have more questions. And I think what I'm going to do, I will open up for questions, for those who are on the Zoom call. I will do that earlier to give people the opportunity to ask their questions directly. So we'll probably have maybe about half an hour to do that. So if you do have a question and you're on the Zoom conversation, please, use the reactions icon there to just indicate by raising your hand, and shortly after 5 p.m. I'll bring you onto the conversation to ask your question. All right, so we still have a few other questions that have come in. This one, I'm going to read it out. It says, if you emerge as governor, sir, are you going to ask the governor for the 18 billion refund from the federal government for road construction? So I don't know if that's something that you are aware of. I think what this person is insinuating is that the current governor may have received 18 billion from the federal government as refund for road construction. So he's asking, are you going to ask for a refund from the governor?
For the question here, I wonder why you would not want me also to ask for the monthly allocation the governor has been receiving, and you center it on only 18 billion that they receive for road construction. First of all, I think that the prevailing position of a public functionary determines his actions. To predetermine what I'll ask and what I will not ask is quite premature. And I will not take any action that will suggest that I'm witch-hunting anybody, because I will be in government to administer the ethic of care and responsibility to the indigenship or citizenry of Cross River State and her people. So I think it will be premature to suggest that in the proper primary open language to ask whether I will go to begin to probe in the former administration. I don't think that is a viable thing to intend as somebody who is intending to get into government. So the occasion of administrative circumstances will determine what we ask and what we do not ask.
All right. We have another question. I'm going to paraphrase this question because it's talking a bit about healthcare infrastructure, but it also talks about dependence on FARC. Now, if I take us back to your initial 3 priority areas, which are education, healthcare, and infrastructure, we know that all of these are areas that are quite capital intensive. And we know that Cross River State is a state that is heavily indebted, one, and has very limited resources coming from the so-called FARC. So I think the question that this person is asking is, how are you going to do the 3 things that you said you will focus on when the state has little or no resources to be able to do anything at all?
Thank you very much. It is said that no matter how slim a cow is, it will not end up as a goat. So government never dies. Government never dies. What is required in circumstances of this nature is prudence, specific tailor-made policies to satisfy expenditure that is justifiable, intended toward recreating wealth and also satisfying the needs of that moment. In this case, there are certain links I have, not because they are necessarily unique to me, but the global public space has certain avenues to attract some of these things without losing sleep. To rely on, in fact, by the potentials of Cross River alone, that's why at the time I spoke, I said, within the first 2 years, we would have laid a foundation to begin to generate some income for the state, so that whether federal allocation comes or not, we also have a complementary source to make our resources begin to boost.
What are those areas, sir? How are you going to do that?
I talked about agriculture, I talked about mining, and then I also mentioned something about intangible social infrastructure. You see, some of the reasons we cannot begin to articulate them the way I perceive them, but I have tested them as minister and I have found them working. It is because many people, the more you speak about them, the more they look so academic because they have not been experimented or even perceived by these people. But as a minister, I experimented on some of those things and I got results. I was minister in charge of 9 states of the Niger Delta region. And some of the things we did not necessarily need to rely on federal government to give us money to do. Yet we achieved so much. And I believe by the open global economic and social experiment, we will be able to attract same to the Cross River State because I have already created a partnership with such institutions, with such agencies, with the global space that can enable us work.
Okay, so you mentioned mining as an area that I think can unlock some wealth for Cross River State, but we know that something like mining, for instance, is tied by red tape, and it is something that is
by what?
Red tape, bureaucracy, especially at the federal level. I don't think someone can just go and begin to mine the resources of Cross River State and the state begins to benefit locally, from that without getting a license from the federal government, having the revenue going to the federal government and coming back, I guess, by way of FARC. So is that really a means by which you would be able to create much of an impact, mining?
The answer is yes. And then let me educate you further. For your information, I set up a quarry, that was in between 2013 and 14, and completed the construction in 2015, and did the test run of production. And the Mining Act, which we used, or which regulations we complied with to set up that quarry, exposed me to all the requirements. And in the regime, under the era of Fayemi as Minister of Mines and Steel Development, there have been some improvements in acquiring such permits and licenses, their renewals and so on, toward getting mining licenses. And that is why I earlier mentioned something about artisanal licenses which has been approved to be acquired. If you meet their obligations, you do not have any bottlenecks in achieving that. And I hope you do not intend that anything associated with federal government is bedeviled by red tapeism. But I want to tell you, I am familiar with that sector. The most challenging aspect used to be the environmental impact assessment aspect of it. But in the quarry I'm telling you we set up, I was able to follow the procedures step by step because I also have a professional inclination to environmental management. And for your information, I hold a Master of Philosophy degree in environmental management. So I knew the requirements and prepared. And so I didn't have any problem at all doing that. And as a government-to-government relationship, the government will be interested in expanding because the more they give the licenses, the more they also earn income for the federal government. So I know the necessary agencies involved that are relevant in this acquisition, and we will engage them appropriately, government-to-government relationship. And I'm sure if as private individual I could get it through, as a head of government, it will not be too problematic for us.
Okay, sir, I will put one more question to you from YouTube channel, and then I will throw it open to participants on the Zoom conversation. So someone is asking, do you have any specific plan for the creative sector, to develop the creative sector in Cross River State?
Well, some of the times the misuse of creative sector suggests just entertainment. Creativity itself suggests residual innovative capacities. And if that is the case, when we talk about economy, there's no sector that's excluded. Anybody that has an idea, anybody that has something that can be creative and add to the value of social and economic improvement of society will be very much welcome. And that is why I say, even in funding research, I will be at the foremost row of funding research, because it is research that motivates creativity. And when research motivates creativity, then the funding of the creative ideas becomes the tangible benefits of society. So I am sure that we will encourage creativity. We will encourage, there are things I created when I was Minister of Niger Delta. We formed a platform for all the international oil companies and the local oil companies, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Army, security segments, the ministry, everyone that was a player in the Niger Delta region, the local content commissioner or board, all of them, that platform was there to articulate what their intentions were per year, so that repetition of projects or programs by different agencies would be avoided in order to spread the development in this, the development programs and projects and priorities across regions. We were in a position to advise 1, 2, 3, you have the same thing in the same place. Move your own to this other place, let this one move it to the other place. Again, we looked at the segment of investment and agriculture, and we got a platform moving state to state, wanting the state government that were willing to attract their investors to come together and form this, while we also engage or involve Nigeria Export-Import Bank to be able to move around with us on this project, so that anyone that sounded viable, the NEXIM representatives will automatically apply themselves to it, give approval, and provide the funds for their investment expansion. So that's why I said the missing gap in our governance is the strategic application of initiative to accomplish the policies that we pronounce by copy and paste. And that is the difference between us. That is the uniqueness between us and some others. And that's what we have to market.
Okay. All right, Pastor Usani, thank you very much. I have a question that has come to you from a radio listener in Biase. He says, "Good day, Pastor. You sound very interesting from what you have said, but my concern is your party is quite new to Cross Riverians. What is the guarantee that your party can win the election in the state?" I
respond to that question from different angles. Those are the concerns of cowards who are ever scared to start a thing. And what do you call a party? A party is an agglomeration of people who come under partisan identity to execute their ambitions. For me, that is what a party is. So if the party is new, is Usani new? If you are going to vote for Usani, because the provision of the Constitution and the Electoral Act is that somebody must be sponsored by a political party, and I've chosen this platform. By the time you vote for Usani, under the logo that has a key, is it the flag of the party that will be signing signatures or making allocations in priorities or projects? So if you know that Usani is suitable to govern, vote for me, and then I sit there. Those who have been cooperating and recycling from one political party to the other, have they changed their conduct toward governance? Have they changed their character? Have they won new faces? Have they changed their addresses? So for me, that is a question of cowards. When we started in the opposition in the merger of APC, this is the same way they were talking. APC is new, APC is new. So as far as I'm concerned, those who lack the confidence and courage to start what I start should know that they can align with me and know that they will not be disappointed. So I advise that caller, just understand that voting for the party or being tenaciously aligned to a party does not give you the result. Again, let me add by asking this question. Today, people say, why not Labour Party? Why not Labour Party? When the Labour Party start becoming popular, is it not because Peter Obi identified that Peter Obi started from APGA, migrated to PDP, and now is in Labour? And because people are making noise about Peter Obi, you think Labour Party is strong. When did you start hearing about Labour Party? 5 months ago, was Labour Party ever heard in such magnitude? So let people deliver their conscience of this kind of cowardly thinking and know that if you prepare for your today, you will deliver your tomorrow. I am available, I'm ready psychologically, emotionally, and otherwise to be the governor and get people to enjoy the benefits of governance. So the issue of PRP is new, is not new. In the first instance, this is the oldest party as far as all the parties in place are concerned. You remember that Aminu Kano of PRP contested elections from 1979 to date, and the name has not changed. It's the same People's Redemption Party. So let people get informed that they will rework their conscience and know that they act according to the spur of the moment to redeem our state from this albatross of governance burden through avaricious tendency. So people who are afraid, we should kill that fear and know that you go for what you want. Because I have the confidence to do it, then you should know that I am unique in this way. What people are afraid of, I have dared. Therefore, it should be a factor of assurance that I'll be able to deliver. So it is offensive to hear that because PRP is new. Don't vote for PRP, vote for Usani.
All right, Pastor Usani, thank you very much for answering that question. I'm going to throw it open, like I said I would do, to participants on the Zoom conversation. So I can see a couple of hands on, Mr. David Etim and Mr. Joel Henshaw. Joel, if you can switch your video on, please. I will take Mr. David Etim first, and Joel, I'll take you next. If anyone else has a question, please, just feel free to indicate by a raise of hand, and we'll come to you. David Etim.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. My name is David Etim. I am the Deputy President of the Calabar Chamber of Commerce. I want to commend your answers and your passion, which has been very visible. But I would like to ask a few questions. And I know that I have 30 seconds, so I'll try and rush through. I've written them down. The first one is, you mentioned very clearly about your people crossing carpet and all of that. I want to ask you, what's your opinion of carpet crossing? This is said in the light that you were in PDP, you went to APC, now you're in PRP.
Fine.
Okay.
Let me correct.
Let me just land, please. Just hold on, please. Thank you. And the position, this is said in the light of the current situation in the judiciary, where the issue of cross-carpeting, I believe Cross River State House of Assembly has some challenges in that area where some people cross-carpet. At the executive, it's a little more accommodated, but in the legislature, I think there's a bit of a challenge. That is just one question. My other question is, if you can, please take, thank you. My other question is, what is your understanding of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and the GDS, the Growth Development Strategy? And how do you think your government can leverage these policy documents to improve the economic fortunes of the state? That is the second question. You want me to repeat anything?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I want
please.
you to repeat the second question.
The second question is, what is your understanding of the AFCFTA and the GDS?
Okay, then
the first question is on the issue of carpet crossing, where the question was that
I was in PDP, APC, and
yes,
John. Yeah?
exactly. And the issue of the judiciary and how the judiciary has taken positions on, especially the legislature, but we don't know. I mean, we are now in a very dynamic era where the judiciary is doing quite a lot. So we don't know whether tomorrow the issue of even the executive crossing carpet may become something that is a challenge. So, that's, in fact, our sitting governor today had that challenge, but I believe through the guy in Ebonyi State, that issue was resolved. But, the legal system is an evolving situation, so things move forward. Now, after that, then how would you rate your tenure as minister in the Ministry of Niger Delta, using that your sector of service as a barometer for how you would be a governor? So I would like you to weigh yourself as minister, and then projecting from there how you would be a governor, using that as your reference point. Now,
David, I think that's 3 questions.
Just 2 more and I'm done. 2 more. I'm working on that 30 seconds. You said we should keep it into 30 seconds. So that's what I'm running through. Now, Cross River State has some key infrastructure, such as Tinapa, Songhai Farms in Abi, the Obudu Ranch Resort. I don't want to go into the cocoa processing in the camp because we don't know whether it's ready or not. But these ones are infrastructures that have been put in place quite some time ago. Now, those infrastructures are, as of today, if not zero utilization, near zero utilization. What is your view of bringing those infrastructures into active operation to be able to then begin to yield income for the state? A lot of capital went into those investments, especially Tinapa and the Obudu. So how do you think you can turn that around? Now, coming to the issue of artisanal mining. While artisanal mining provides employment for people, but what actually brings the wealth, creates the wealth, and is the industrial mining. Now, industrial mining is clearly in the purview of the federal government. What would you as governor do to support private investment in industrial mining so as to provide the succor that private sector will need to step into that space and really expand it? Because artisanal mining, yes, it helps people get employment, but it does not create the kind of volumes in terms of income that is required to move a state geometrically forward in a situation today where we have, at the national level, we are talking about technical insolvency, at the national level.
Are you still on 30 seconds?
Yes, I'm done. That's my last question.
Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
I will start from the last question. Yes, even artisanal mining is under licensing by the federal government. No state government has the right to grant those licenses. But when you talk of developing a society, you must appreciate the level of development where that society is before you know what to initiate. Otherwise, it becomes a colossal failure, as if initiating what you cannot finish. Talking about artisanal mining is, again, the fact that you are relying on the possible available manpower to apply to the environment. It does not mean that one is not talking about industrial mining. Yes, it will grow. And again, it does not mean that we are foreclosing industrial mining. But industrial mining is so capital intensive that with the state of Nigerian economy, with somebody has, cross river economy, the application of the state interest in it may take a different dimension from the approach on the artisanal mining. Talking about the artisanal mining is because the current prevailing condition in what I would call poaching in our very local communities and taking away valuable mineral resources is very inimical to our economy and injurious to the state of our own people, because they are not even keeping the rules. They are not observing the health and safety conditions that are supposed to be complied with in such sectors. So when I talk about artisanal mining, it's because somebody talked about
creating employment. Now, to produce an industrial mine that can process and get to finished product, it will take you a minimum of probably 24 years for what I know to be. If you are even having to refine things like gold or diamond or such. So starting with artisanal mining does not suggest that we foreclose industrial mining. So people who are interested in industrial mining, by way of policy, the government can partner with them. But what I know can be much easily done. And as the scope expands, which I said before, as each sector expands, then you can be growing. So at the state of Nigeria, Cross River mining level now, it is to address what will begin to bring in quick returns to be able to grow further and larger. There are issues about Tinapa, Songhai Farms, Obudu Ranch. I'd like you to go and research to find out when last they worked in the essential capacities to bring about returns on investment. I tell you, you don't just conceive ideas without having the linkage consequences from one level to another. And that is what I talked about, the uniqueness of our strategic application to managing every sector of the economy. When you talk about Tinapa probably intended to be an international trading center. But you see, Cross River State or Calabar, as per the location of Tinapa, is what you call a terminal location. It's not an intervening community like you would have in Dubai. From anywhere in the world, if you're traveling to Dubai or from any point to any point, you can have a stopover at Dubai. Then what are the infrastructure that have enabled this Dubai to be what it is? Aviation is important. It is a commercial area. It is one of the global financial centers, so that even on transactions, you can go there and mobilize funds and go elsewhere. But for our location in Calabar, you cannot go, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, you cannot go elsewhere except you are going to Calabar. You cannot encounter Calabar by going elsewhere. And then it would have been worthwhile if you say it is going to serve the export processing zone. I do want to take that dimension in because the export processing zone has its basic conditions why it has not worked, why it is difficult to work. And so Tinapa would have been quite worthwhile if that connection, the loop, was properly thought of, and then that relationship established and the relevant instruments put on ground. If you now talk about Tinapa, like I said, find out when last it worked in tandem with being an economic resource. If you talk about the Songhai farms, you say it's in Abi. Wherever anything called farms is located in Cross River, it is supposed to be viable. Why is Songhai farms not viable? It brings about our own attitude, our orientation, our approach toward government investments. Going beyond that may be indicting, and I don't want to indict anybody because I don't even know those who are involved. And if you talk about Obudu Resort, you know, right from the 70s, the Obudu Ranch had been a very popular nationwide resort where even heads of state from the time of Gowon were coming on holidays. Why is it not working now? When did it stop working? What was the consequence of the last review policy affecting that ranch in terms of investment made, and what made it to collapse? As somebody in your position as a vice chairman of the chamber, I believe you have these answers because you should have been conversant with the investment profile of Cross River State and the business environment. So I won't answer them for you. When you get the answers, let's interact again, then we can discuss. It will no longer be question and answer. Then the judicial on legislation on crossing carpets. In my view, we don't even need any law on these matters. Any honorable person with conscience that is tenacious with belief and policy and sanctity of thought should naturally stick to certain principles. And if there are differences in the manifesto and rules of parties, people should make choices and stick accordingly. I have never been in PDP. Now reflecting on your first question, you said from PDP to AP, I have never been in PDP. I supported Kanu Agabi on individual basis. Recall, when that election took place, I was commissioner in the state. And at that instance, I was not expected to be a member of any party. When I left that government, I supported Kanu Agabi. When Kanu Agabi lost the bid of contesting as governorship candidate of PDP, I then fell in place to support Donald Duke. Because at the time, obviously, Donald needed to be governor, so Agabi would have something, since they were the two key factors in the PDP. And that is exactly what informed my supporting Donald under the PDP. So I have never been a member of the PDP. I supported Kanu Agabi on my belief in his integrity and his personality and character when he was a private practitioner as a lawyer. So that's why I supported Kanu Agabi, not because I was a member of PDP. So I have never been. Instead, you will know that from the very first time I wanted to contest the governorship, I was in NDP. When again, there was malpractice because the leaders of the party declined conducting primaries. And I don't submit to oppression of any sort. It doesn't matter what the consequences will be. I left and took up a new party, the New Democrats. And then when next I intended to contest, in 2012, I came under the ACN. And then the last bid was APC, of course, being the formation of the merger between the legacy parties, part of ABGA, ANPP, ACN, and the CPC. And I came over to APC. And having come to APC, again on account of lack of practice of transparency, or what I consider conscripted spaces of political expression, I had to move over and take another party. And this, I think, should be the things that should inform people who want to make opinions about who to vote for, because the ability and courage to say, I jettison what appears to be popular, not necessarily right and acceptable, is what should make you get convinced that I am suitable and prepared. So now I'm talking about African Trade Act. My opinion. When you talk about such trade organizations or trade agreements, the first import of every regional trade agreement is to have liberalization of trading or commerce within regions or states. To talk about my opinion on it, let us ask ourselves, what competitive advantage does Nigeria have in trading with the countries that make up that agreement? If we have any competitive advantages, what is the volume? Because that will determine the inflows in terms of financial resources and other balances of trade and balance of payments. If that is examined, then let's ask ourselves, what then are we likely to receive from other countries, so that we do not encourage dumping as it is today in Nigeria, wherein things are imported from Benin Republic, even if they are of no quality, and we take them into the land by smuggling. So the elements that inform a trade agreement anchored on liberalization of trade are such that today they cannot just be taken on the basis of comparative advantage because they are just omnibus classical economic models. Today we have to examine them one by one, because in a twinkle of an eye, an economy can crumble because another nation has prepared itself to tackle what you have as an advantage and overrun you in 1 month. And then you just find your economy crumbling. And that can be part of the reason you find the high rate of devaluation of Naira to the foreign currencies. So talking about trade acts, it is not wrong to have trade agreements of this nature, but it is essential to examine what advantages you stand to gain in enabling them.
Okay, Pastor Usani, thank you very much for addressing those questions. We have a couple more hands, and I'm conscious of the fact that we've got about 7 more minutes on this interactive session. So I will ask Joel Henshaw, please, to go ahead and ask one question and keep it short and sweet. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Hope you can hear me, sir.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Engineer Joel Henshaw, Deputy Chairman, National Youth Council of Nigeria Cross River State Chapter. So you've spoken very well, but one of the things I'm not really happy with, it's you didn't give us details on your intending plan to revive those industries, Tinapa and so on, Shanga Farm, what you can do to revive it. I think that should also be, I feel it should be in your plan, and then find a way forward. But my major question is now, one, I have just two questions. Institutions, what is your plan? How do you intend to work with institutions? We understand that this is our present government, though it likes working with youth, but there's no way you work with individuals and not work with a team. So I think how do you intend to work with every institution? Two, capacity building. In terms of, for example, we are envisaging that Cross River State will be an industrialized destination. We need to have capacity. What is your plan to train young people? How do you intend to go about it to get this result? Thank you very much.
Okay, let me come first by your concern in the earlier question I answered. I want to tell you that.
Sorry, Pastor Usani, if you can just keep your answers, please, to maybe 2 minutes so that we can take 2 more questions.
No, you had earlier encouraged me to talk because then people want to be educated, so I will talk.
But we have less than 5 minutes left.
That's all right. I will talk. Wherever you stop me, I stop. But let it be known that I have something to say.
Okay, go on.
Yes. When you talk of, you are not impressed about what I've said about Tinapa. Tinapa is so gigantic that you can't talk about reviving or revamping it when you do not have something to bring the accruals for recovery. So it's not something I sit here and speculate and give you an answer to impress you. For your information, my PhD is in economic growth and human development. I have a degree in marketing. I have a degree in business administration. And so all these professional knowledge skills I gain are for application. So I should not just because of politics begin to speak about things that will put me to this day tomorrow. I want you to understand that. So until I have what it takes to be able to energize those things you're talking about and know that there is a commercial propensity for them, I won't address them because I'll be lying to you and tomorrow you won't need to ransom about them. Then in terms, when you talk about institutions, for God's sake, I will tell you, yeah, one of the ways to build institutions is to encourage everybody to be sanctimonious in observing rules, regulations, and laws. Every human being can do everything or anything. But the ability to discipline yourself and conform with rules is what the problem is, which is why you and I need a new orientation. Not to be able at all times to clap hands just because something looks impressive without interrogating the fabric of its content. So that is why institutions are, I believe in what you've said, building institutions for the strength and progress of our society. But that calls for a reorientation between you and I and for all of us, so that we will stand strong and be able to deliver when the institutions are working. Today, ask yourself, even the political party you have affinity to, have they conformed with rules and regulations to bring about their outcomes in exercises of contest or competitions? Now, to build capacity building is in different forms. While I was minister, I want to tell you, I can boast very well that, so I now reflect on the last question. Let me use my tenure as minister to see whether I'm suitable for governor. I am more than suitable. When you people when Cross Riverians had a problem between Akpabio getting into Calabar, some people said, oh, there was a deep sea potting between, people took 2 hours between Akpabio and Calabar. Nobody came and made an application. From Abuja, I heard it. I had to intervene with the ministry resources and we resurfaced the road. The erosion ravaging Ikoneto, nobody applied. It is not. I awarded the contract for its management before now. The road between Akang Patrol, Usani Bassey to the power plant, nobody applied. I knew it was to service a certain rural population for enhanced practices of rural occupations like agriculture. Nobody applied. I put it in place. Each one I'm talking about is what was done and finished. And then in terms of capacity building, find out between Akpabio, Calabar South, Bakassi, Odupani, Yala, Ogoja, the number of young people we put in training and enhanced their startups between 350,000 to 1 million naira. We did that in multiple times. One thing I'd like you to do, get my contact, reach me, I'll give you a dossier of all these achievements we made. So it is already in our agenda, and I've demonstrated it in my political career, that young people at the age of 20, 20-something, 30-something, we have promoted their interest to being local government chairmen, to being legislators, and so on and so forth, when nobody had thought that they were of any value in society.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I think we have time to take just one more. Mr. Johnson Eboko, please, if you can just go ahead with one question, please, and then we'll wrap up the interactive session for today.
Hello, good evening, Honorable Minister.
Man, how are you?
It's fine. It's nice to meet you again. I am actually the DG of the Cross River Economic Summit Organization. And I must say that I'm glad that you have answered some of the questions circumspectively. But I just want to ask a question. In all that you have said, you haven't said anything about how you intend to, or what kind of plan you have for agricultural development, considering the fact that we have more than 19,000 square kilometers of arable land. We have the waterfront.
I think because of time, I can just come ahead right away.
Yes.
So say
Yes,
you govern Cross River without agriculture will be artificial. But because, again, with the way we are managing this conversation, one probably will not have addressed that. But when I talked about food security through infrastructure development, you should have known that there's a program for that. And then there's another aspect called tenant farming, which I intend that because of the possibility, the difficulty of accessing land due to the Land Use Act, we have a program whereby people without land can become tenants for cultivation. And so they can cultivate different crops and practice their different agricultural endeavors. So I think at a more elaborate time, I'll let you know what plans we have for agriculture. Of course, all the plantations we have today, you see, they have been given out to companies to run. We don't know on what conditions. I also have a plan that we will make them work for the benefit of the private investors, the benefit of the state, and for the benefit of the individuals. The economy of my community, for instance, was booming in the 60s and 70s because of the rubber estate located here. And when we were children, we knew how well families benefited from there, and a lot of people went to school, derived their resources from there. So I understand the import of agriculture. Agriculture is like a baseline sector which cannot be ignored. But when I talked about the other three, you saw that those other three would probably become options. For me, they are not optional, but agriculture is a baseline. If you understand what I mean by baseline, it means it is fundamentally a foundation for everything else.
All right, thank you very much, Pastor Usani Usani. It's been a pleasure having you on this edition of Ask the Candidates organized by the Cross River Movement. Unfortunately, I have to bring this to an end. There are lots of other questions, but sadly we can't carry on. Thank you very much to our partners, the African Leadership Group, the Calabar Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, the Cross River Economic Summit Organization, and thank you very much to our sponsors for making this interactive session available on radio. So thanks to Quick School Manager and Alpha Berg Agro Allied Limited. Thank you very much. Just to let you know that we have one more interactive session which should come up on the 23rd of October, and then we're expecting to have the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Prince Bassey II. We invite you all, everybody who's been on this conversation, this interactive session this afternoon, to please tune in on Sunday, the 23rd, and do follow us on social media. Facebook, you can search for us at Cross River Move. On Twitter, we are at Cross River Move also, and on YouTube, the link has been shared on Zoom. It would encourage us a lot if you click on that link and you subscribe to our channel. Also, you can find out more about the Cross River Movement by visiting our website, www.crossrivermove.com. And you can sign up there as well. And if you would love to volunteer for organization, there are opportunities for you to do that also. Just to also mention, if anyone is interested in being a sponsor of the radio component for our next interactive session, we have opportunities available where we can give visibility to your organization or your brand. So get in touch with us. You can send us an email, info@crossrivermove.com. So thank you very much, Pastor Usani Usani. Thanks very much once again for making our time on this Sunday evening to join us. And on behalf of the Cross River Movement, we wish you the very best as you proceed with your campaigns towards becoming the next governor of Cross River State. Thank you very much.
May God bless you.
Thank you.